It's usually easier to assess situations from what we see and hear and feel, but oftentimes the greatest insights are obtained through the softer, deeper philosophical observations of life, which coagulate into statements and observations as well. These statements have guided the evolution of society and men over aeons. But what about Nigeria? Who are we listening to? Who and what is shaping our views and trajectory as a people? Musicians, comedians, celebrities, influencers, as they call them these days. Whereas some of these groups of people have great insight, yet we need to search for modern-day philosophers to determine our trajectory. Joining us today is a poet, a philosopher, and patriot, Deji Ige, to look at the state of the nation and offer insights from a philosophical angle. Welcome, Deji.
Thank you very much.
To your show, The Nationalist.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So, let me hit you straight. So, as a philosopher, patriot, and poet, what are your insights about Nigeria today?
Yeah, speaking first from the perspective of a poet, poets are called prophets. So basically, I see a great Nigeria emerging. I see the promises she holds. And I see the fact that there is no Messiah in sight except you and I.
Yeah.
The common man, so to speak, will become the Messiah, the next Messiah of Nigeria. Believe me, poets are prophets. Believe me, this is what is going to happen. We expected some Messiah at some point in our nationhood, not far from now, and we fell flat on our face. And so basically, I think the mass, the critical mass, must have realized now that we are the Messiah Nigeria is waiting.
We are the ones we've been waiting for.
We are the ones we've been.
Now, but how is that going to happen? How do we all wake up one day and decide to do the right thing and decide to save ourselves without external impetus? Who's going to drive us and coordinate that affair?
Beautiful question. How does it happen? I'm going to start with the saying, Rome was not built in a day, but the people who built Rome did not run to Athens when the bricks were falling. They stayed back to build Rome. And how did it happen for the Romans? I mean the Romans of the past years. They insisted. They dropped the guns and picked the shovels. They dropped even farm implements and picked shovels to build. When it was time to cultivate, they dropped shovels and picked the farm tools, the farming tools. So basically, for bringing it to Nigeria, at this point in time, everybody cannot jump into Aso Rock and become the leaders. But eventually, the Vox Populi, Vox Dei, if the voice of the people would count on who they want in the place of leadership, then we can say this is one of us leading, or this is our anointed leading. And when followers choose their leader, it's easy for them to follow such a leader. And it's easy for them to fall in line. It's easier to make sacrifices. So the next, how do we become the Messiah? Back to the question. It's by doing what is right, starting from electing right, selecting right, participating in the right way, not being apathetic towards the polity, which is something beautiful that is happening in Nigeria now. There's no apathy anymore, especially among the youths. Even the younger generations who cannot vote are paying so much attention to what is happening. This is how we become the Messiah. And going further, when we select the person to lead us and we select right, then it's going to be our voice that will be heard at the top. So this is gradually how we become the Messiah.
But what if we're not lucky enough to actually do that? Because for several reasons, is there still a way out for us as a people to to begin to encourage ourselves if we're not able to get that linchpin? That's my first question. The second one is just how important, having been very elusive, okay, just how important is having that linchpin, that silver bullet, that key driver in a person. Perhaps we should be looking at concepts rather than persons to help us get to that promised land. Yeah.
Very, very sensible perspective. Now, structures, systems create order in a society. Systems, not necessarily people. It's systems. And how some people will call it structures, but I would call it systems. Judicial system, this is this, this is that. So these systems create order. But people create these systems. So when we collectively come together to create systems that will function well for the society and attend to Nigerians, then even if you bring a less intelligent person to be the leader of the country, the systems we have created, this airtight system, will help such a person govern appropriately. But when we have wobbly systems here and there, then bring the best person in the world to run the country, they will not do well because the systems are wobbly.
But how do we get that system in place then?
People.
The right system.
People will have to create these systems. It takes willpower.
If, for example, maybe, because I heard that word used a lot, system, and it sort of confuses me. For example, if we're going to change things that are fundamental to the superstructure of Nigeria today, we'll probably have to go back to the National Assembly. Because they said, according to the Constitution, those are the only people that can change anything in Nigeria. And if you go to National Assembly, then you're faced with a situation whereby those guys are trying to protect their own positions and themselves, And, if it doesn't favor them, they don't make anything move. So as a philosopher, I'm just trying to see how you can give us insights into what else we can do to help ourselves if the extant system that has been created has itself become a problem.
So first and foremost, it falls back on the people. Now, and when I say it falls back on the people, it falls back on people who are serious about fixing their society. At some point, Americans were so carried away with the glams and glitz of the world, the country fell apart. You heard of the Great Depression. Everybody was hungry. The Wall Street guys were all about the money, But later they realized, no, it was supposed to be about America. The men who built the country, they did their job. Finally, some people came and got carried away. Depression happened. The same thing with Stalin, Russia. A leader who was so brutish in his ways. Finally, Mussolini in Italy, the people took back the power. And when they took back the power, they realized this must never happen again. So they sat straight and started running things. Now, how can that happen in Nigeria? When the people are so involved in the system, they know what comes to their representative, they know what comes to their senator, they know what these people have done with the money, they know what goes into the executive. People make their leaders account, especially when they start paying attention. Then the politicians will sit straight. And when that happens, it will be a little difficult to tamper with the Constitution, to tamper with policy making, or to make anti-people policies, or to thwart pro-people policies. Involvement of the people in the system of a country will lead to progress and nation building.
Now, I'm gonna task you on something.
Very well.
When we talk about the people, and I'm reminded of things like the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, and others. And he's always said that every revolution creates its own tyrants as well. Whereby the guys who are saying, hey, I looted today, tomorrow they become the new oppressors.
Yes.
And, which way forward? And when we look at our people, compared with, let's say, the French people before the revolution, we say that majority of our people are poor today. Majority are illiterate, okay? Yes. And when we say they are illiterate, it's because they can't speak English language. And English has become the language of the world, at least the larger part of the world, still. And however, in the French Revolution, everybody spoke French. In the 1600s, when they moved against, Oliver Cromwell moved against the British crown, the English crown. Everybody spoke English, they may differ a little bit, from Scotland, the way you speak it, to Ireland, to England, and so on, Perhaps in Russia, Bolshevik, everybody spoke Russian. Therefore, everybody was on the same plane, almost on the same plane. Now, how do we galvanize our people, given the fact that many can't speak that English, or not at the level at which we can all sit down and project and imagine things and express ourselves that this is the kind of nation we need? Are we not at a disadvantage in getting that revolution going, such that we may see a scenario where a few elites, for example, in Nigeria, people say, hey, we need a national conference. We need a national conference. The competition is rubbish. But I realize that the same people have been going for these conferences since the 1950s. If they are still alive. The ones that are not alive, sometimes they have put their children in place. And the ones that are still alive, if they've been going since the 70s, if they convene another one tomorrow, they want to be there. So it's like a case of, you want to keep listening to yourself. What do you think about this?
All right. First, about language. Now, when the people have common plight, common challenges, that they want to commonly tackle, unanimously tackle, they speak the same language. Forget that I speak Angas, you speak Yoruba, someone else speaks Igede. No. The moment you have common challenges, the language will be unified into one. We saw an example in NSAS movement. Most people joined the NSAS, they couldn't speak English, but they knew what they were fighting for because they had experienced the brutality of the SARS operatives. So whether about English or not, SARS, they speak their dialects, okay, these people must go. So the literates will write things on placards for them they carry. Or they tell the literates what they want on their placards. The literates will help. This is how it works. It was fortunate for the French to all have spoken French at that time. But language, the verbal language is lost when people unite for a movement. Forget about it. It's feeling now. It's feeling, not verbal language anymore. And it's telepathic. I'm still going to go back to NSAS movement because it was an opportunity that we missed to unite this country. Some people may have thought they quelled the rebellion. No, they killed the spirit.
Where was the NSAS going? It was, to an extent, not heading anywhere.
Now, to say it wasn't heading anywhere.
After a while, it was just a case of, okay, guys felt, okay, this could go on forever. And, they didn't mind if it was inconveniencing other innocent people. Pregnant mothers got stuck on the road. A few people died. It was the COVID era. So people died inside ambulances because they couldn't pass. And NSAS people had blocked the road, either in Lagos, Abuja, or elsewhere. And then, of course, the messaging was also terrible. From Lekki, the messaging was different from what's going on in Agege, what's going on in Alausa, what's going on in Ibadan. In those states where I'm from, Akure, people started burning houses. And in Akure, we have a phobia for that because in 1983, people burnt houses and burnt human beings. We said, no way, this is not going to happen again. And when they caught a few of them, we found out they were speaking all sorts of different languages. And what right did they have to come and burn houses in our town? You know what I'm saying? So,
I understand what you're saying.
So it's a bit dangerous, really.
Yeah. So basically, let me touch a little bit on NSAS movement and leave it. For the next 100 years to come, there will be 100 different accounts of NSAS movement.
Exactly.
But one truth will remain. The movement was hijacked. It was infiltrated.
Okay.
Call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
When this thing started, it was genuine. It was pure.
Exactly.
The same with, unfortunately, the people who were so smart, rather than smart, I would say cunning or vile, they knew what to do to infiltrate the system.
Yeah.
And by the time miscreants will go and burn one house, some other people say, no, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Yeah.
Why are we burning houses? Meanwhile,
the
people who are really genuinely fighting for something are not the ones burning.
That's it.
You said something. You said they started saying, speaking different language, foreign languages. Why are you here burning houses, speaking foreign language? So anyway, let's leave NSAS. Story for another day.
Story for another day. Yeah.
Now let's go back to how can it matter, the voice of the people? How can people come together? How can they unite? How can they speak one voice and get things done? I believe going forward in Nigeria, I said it the other time that we killed a spirit, but I don't think we have really lost that.
Yeah.
It's still the same Nigerians. We have these things encrypted in our DNA.
Yeah.
We'll always be that. Now leadership, where our leadership matters a lot.
It does, but I would want to take you off that trajectory. You started with a very positive message. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Yes.
We don't have to, like when Rome wasn't built in a day, but those who built Rome did not run to Athens or run to Zhongguo, which is what China was called, or to Mughal Empire in India or something. They stayed in Rome, and so they had the responsibility. They understood that this was a responsibility to build Rome. What was I thinking of the other day? And I was thinking about nation building. What does that mean? Apart from the philosophical underpinning of building a nation or what a nation represents, there's also the physical building. The fact that you build a house, you're partly building a nation. How you build that house, the kind of architecture you put in place is all part of nation building. And I'm thinking, okay, if everybody runs from Nigeria, who's going to actually build Nigeria? So, but I wanted to ask you, what are the roles, what have you seen to be your role as a poet? I've seen you do some, poetic stuff out there, spoken word. Did they call that artists or what? Spoken word artists. Yes. Okay. You guys mount the rostrum, you ginger people up, you say the right things. I don't know how you do it. I don't think I'll ever go into such a thing because it takes a lot of brain power and all. But what are the overarching roles of a poet in a society like ours?
First, I say poets are prophets.
And how can they keep the message positive so that we don't, because like what happened in the case of the NSAS, which I really don't like talking about it, but was that, maybe because it went on for so long, all sorts of people were able to hijack it, so probably need to define, otherwise the revolution will create all sorts of monsters of its own.
Exactly.
Because plus or minus, some say it's government hijacked it. But also, criminals hijacked it.
Of course, absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
some people, before you knew it, they said, no, it was end Nigeria, end Buhari, end this, end that. And I felt, no, I won't get involved in some of that. I asked them the question, what do you want to come after this one? You seem not to know what it was. And in fact, a lot of the players were very, maybe all these Ajabota children whose parents had, had a lot of money as well. So we felt, and it could have turned out to be something great if they could have come together positively to say, this is what we want. I suggested to them, why don't you put money together and protect it with blockchain technology? And with the big money you can put together, because there's cooperation, you can actually build stuff in every local government in this country to represent the idea and the dreams of the youth of this country. Even if it was civic centers, youth centers, IT hubs, whatever it was. Do you know they could have pulled that money together? I knew billionaire children that were there, billionaire teenagers and 20 years old who were there. But at the end of the day, dissipated.
Yeah.
They could have also put together money to intervene in schools. They could have actually launched something to say, listen, this out of school children in Nigeria, we want to make sure that all of them are, taken care of and put back in schools. But that didn't happen. Anyway, so back to the question. What are the roles of poets in a country like ours?
All right. Poets are first writers. The poets are writers before they are poets. So okay. I'll start with the writers are the scribes of the society. Poets are the mouthpiece of the people. They are the spokespersons of the society. And at some point, they're actually the document keeper of the society. They are the history tellers. They are the history keepers of the society. Now, they are the motivation of the society. So, role of poets in a society like ours.
Yes.
First, you have to realize that it's a calling. It's not about money at all. If it was about money, you won't find many of us writing or speaking. I mean, it's not pop culture. So that's on one side. It's a calling. And when you have that calling, you are constantly disturbed with these ideas are in your head. You see things that are wrong, and you know what you can write about them. Now, you can either channel that creative instinct to the right direction, to the positive direction, or to the negative direction.
Okay, you know what? Let's keep it, put a lead on it for a moment there while we take a break to pay some bills. We'll be right back. Welcome back, viewers, and if you're just joining us, we'll be speaking with Mr. Deji Ige, poet and philosopher, patriot, and prophet, on the roles of philosophers and poets in a developing country such as ours, Nigeria. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
Before we left for that short break, we were discussing essentially, what roles, poets, philosophers like you, prophets, can play in our kind of society. And one thing that worries me when I look at our society is that, these days of social media, we see people who can create any nuisance value and then they get 50 million followers. I don't know how many followers you have, maybe you want to tell us. I know you'd have maybe some 100,000 or 200,000 or something of that sort. I don't have that many, but however, those are the people that are dictating values, dictating the trajectory of society. They're the ones showing our children what to be, so the more notorious you can be, the better. Maybe you become a cross-dresser, for example, or you become a sexual pervert of sorts, and then everybody wants to follow you. And oftentimes I wonder, when someone who is 18 years or 20 years, who's still trying to figure out a lot of things, he hasn't even maybe gone to university, which, doesn't matter really, but trying to figure his life out, and he has 20 million followers already because he's been on Big Brother Nigeria or Big Brother Africa. Where are you leading people to, because a leader is that person that has at least one follower. So all of those are big leaders, as it were. What do you have to say to this?
Yeah, first, I agree to your position on this. And I think where the problem started from was when we as a people started placing value on the wrong things. When we started worshiping money, we started worshiping material, we started worshiping intangible things of little value. In the higher scale of values, we stopped paying attention to intellect. We stopped giving credit to intellectuals. Now, at some point in our society, the intellectuals were actually the celebrities of the society. The Wole Soyinka of those days, the Bola Ige of those days, Fela Anikulapo of those days. Fantastic, even Sardauna himself, Tafawa Balewa, Obafemi Awolowo, and Nahoro. These were massive intellectuals. Akintola, Aminu Kano,
Michael Opara, people like that.
These were intellectuals who would speak and the whole world will listen. They were but now, values are placed on the wrong things. Money, who has the bigger car.
How can we reverse that?
And I think it has to do with ideological reorientation. But we have to reverse what the problem we created. Ideological reorientation. Place value on education. Place value on intellect. Pay more attention to intellect and intellectuals. And with that, you can be sure of a society that will be driven to the right direction.
Fantastic. I want to challenge you now to give us one of your poetic renditions that could end within 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay,
as
now,
we close.
Okay, a quick one. I like telling the tale of glory of my society. There's an African proverb that says, "Until the lions learn to tell their story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." So on the backdrop of that, I would say, for the wisdom of elders, look not to Twitter. It is written in time, not online. And for their knowledge, read between the lines of their wrinkles. Let me tell you a story. It is written with the blood of my forefathers, woven around the tongue of their mother, and it has never been told in a foreign tongue. It is a tale of invention, bravery, and conquest that rival the exploits of the gods. They say we come from the land where rivers sing a song, to the sound of horns, gongs, the beat of talking drums, and the happy feet of a resilient people. I was told we are descendants of the immortals and mortals stronger than the immortals. I was told by moonlight tales of fatherland in the eloquence of mother tongue. Once upon a time, we were kings from the womb of queens. Of our outstanding humans, deities were made. Before ink met paper somewhere in the West, we cast words in iron, on parchment and scroll, tablet of stone, and the heart of those in search of greatness. We crafted masterpieces with gold, traded far and wide, designed legal tenders, made medicines from herbs and roots, as our lingual invention was a thing of wonder.
Wonderful. Amazing. I'm sure it's longer than that, right?
Yeah, quite long.
You gave us an abridged version. Fantastic. And as usual, I was enthralled, by how you put these things together. And I think that, I know you have a big audience already, but the audience must continue to expand. And I think also that as we lament value erosion, as it were, perhaps even if we don't find philosopher kings who can direct us all to one, I think that it falls back on you intellectuals, poets, philosophers, to ensure that we rescue ourselves from the abyss in a very ultra-competitive world as well, where nobody is taking any prisoners. It's a minus-sum game. People destroy others, nations destroy nations in order to get ahead. So thanks for coming, Mr. Deji.
Thank you for having me.
And I think we'll still bring you on board at some other time in future to come and continue to expound on this subject and even other subjects.
It will be my pleasure. Thank you very much.
You've been watching The Nationalist on Trust TV, and join us next week.